So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi, Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. Wanted to pop on again because I wanted to take another look at another striker that Aston Villa were previously linked with, should I say. Um, Source wasn't exactly very good. They were linked back in March and in April to this player, a player who went to the World Cup of Brazil last November or whenever it was, went to the World Cup in Qatar. A striker and somebody that I think could have a few European teams looking at him, and his name is Pedro. And he's got a longer name than that, but I've completely blanked on what the rest of his name is there. As you would be able to see it at the start of the podcast there. But plays with Flamengo. Has some previous European experience, which we'll talk about in a moment, and maybe look at some of the reasons why that didn't really pan out for him when he moved to Europe previously. But he's somebody that scores goals. I was going to say he scores goals for a living, but I'd hope a striker would score goals for a living. But he scores goals. He scores lots of them, and he's your typical number 9. He's your on the shoulder player. He's your penalty box player. And he's somebody that's very different, as I say, to the Ollie Watkins that we have at the moment, or to Cameron Archer as well. That I would imagine is going to be a huge part of this team in 2023-24. So I'm just going to pull up some of my notes on him here, if you don't mind. So I will share these. Share my screen, share my window. Yeah. So looking at some of my notes here, I popped them up on the screen once again, like I did last night. So Pedro is a talented 26-year-old striker. He's been making waves in football world with his impressive performances for Flamengo, standing at an imposing height of 186 centimeters or 6'1" for those in proper money, as I like to call it. Pedro has established himself as a force to be reckoned with in the pitch. So basically, he began his career at Fluminense, where he showcased his potential as a prolific goal scorer, 20 goals and 3 assists in 58 games. And he caught the attention of European clubs, leading to a move to Fiorentina for 11 million euros. However, Pedro's time in Italy was marred by a torn ACL and a lack of fit with the team's tactics, which is huge for a young player. I think he was only like 21 when he moved to Fiorentina. And as I say, ACL knocked him back in his heels. They didn't really fit in with the team's tactics. I'm not sure. I can't remember if they changed manager at the time, but it just wasn't a fit for him. And he returned back to Brazil, seeking to regain his form and confidence. Then he moved on loan initially to Flamengo, and then he ended up playing with Flamengo. He ended up playing with Flamengo. They ended up signing him again. Now, Flamengo tend to play with a 4-3-1-2, and Pedro is part of a fluid front three. I know it says front three here because that person that plays behind the two strikers, somebody we were linked to, Uruguayan player Arezqueta, I think is how you pronounce. I can't really pronounce his name. But you guys any of you who've been following Aston Villa transfers for maybe the last 3 or 4 years will have seen his name. I think he actually played in the World Cup as well. So he plays behind, and sometimes he joins that front three. So Pedro plays in that front three. It's a fluid front three, but he is the focal point. He's the person who plays up top. We'll see it in a moment. There's quite a lot of striking talent at the Flamengo team, and they play in kind of different positions. But he tends to be that focal number 9, that battering ram that plays up top. So what we'll see is he does drop off in link play. Sometimes it's not his bread and butter, and sometimes he peels wide to run into the left channel. Any of his runs, when he does get the ball and he does try and run at goal, it is always from the left. It's watching some of his games on Y Scout. I think I actually can't think of a time where he picked up the ball on the right hand side and drove a goal. It seems to always be from the left. But like as it says, as I say there, you'll most likely find him on the shoulder of the last defender. Dirty goals, goals from inside the box, headers, left foot, right foot. You know, he's well able to score. Well able to score a rounded type of goal, should I say? And that's something I think that Aston Villa need. Um, as Flamengo progress the ball, he makes little stop-start runs to keep himself onside and gain fractions of space away from his markers. His height makes him a handful, and he's very good in the air, which means he can win flick-ons to release other players ahead of him or hold the ball up as well. Something that always translates well into the Premier League. Manchester United signed somebody called Wout Weghorst. I think that's how you pronounce his name, and that's simply because he was able to hold the ball up and at times he was able to come deep. I'm not saying that this person is in any way, shape, or form like that, but what I'm saying is that players like that are becoming less and less in numbers, and players like that can score goals are certainly becoming less and less. It's a bugbear of mine that I've spoken about. The traditional, typical centre forward is um is hard to come by, and that's why I wanted to mention this guy because he's got a really good goal scoring record. So, as I've said below here, Pedro is a true poacher in the penalty box, excelling in his ability to find the back of the net. And as a classic number 9, he stays focused on finishing attacks and acts as a target man for his team. With a strong right foot, left foot, and aerial prowess, Pedro poses a threat from various angles. Scored 23 goals in 37 appearances last year across Brazilian Serie A and Libertadores. And those 23 goals came in 1,883 minutes, which was a goal every 81 minutes with a 30.3% conversion rate. All great statistics. In Brazil, they play lots of different regional competitions as well. You'll see that he will have scored more goals or less goals depending on where you go and what website you go to. I've taken those numbers directly from FBref, and that's where I found my information there as well. His career has seen him score 74 goals in 188 games in Brazil. So that's an impressive strike rate there as well. At Flamengo, Pedro faces stiff competition from the likes of Bruno Henrique and Gabriel Barbosa, somebody we were linked with, I think, last summer as well. But despite this, he's managed to make his march starting in 50% of the games. Pedro's ability to consistently find the target is evident with a 52.4% of his shots being on goal. And his goals, and that's his shots being on goal throughout all different competitions. When we look at these statistics in a moment, you'll see that that I think that number is slightly lower because it was just looking at domestic competitions in the last 365 days. Um, so looking at his shot map here from Y Scout, you'll see that everything is very much central. It's very much in the goals, in around the penalty box. He's that type of player, so that's why I picked him, and that's why I picked Brian Broby last night as well, because it's important to see these types of players, because I think that there's a lack of them at the moment, and highlighting them. And if Villa were to bring somebody in, I think that they could be a good fit with this team. Unai Emery has played with them before in the form of um is it Gerard Romero, the tall striker at Villarreal. He has played with a player like that at focal point as well previously. So that's another reason why I'm thinking that it could be a nice little change of pace player to bring in as well. I'm not going to go down through the rest of my notes there with regards to this guy, but I am going to bring up the slides that I've done on him from a statistical point of view. And I suppose the biggest one here is when we look at his radial graph, he's a very attacking player. And obviously this radial graph that I do is it just focuses on attacking output, really. Doesn't focus that much. Yes, we've got ball recoveries in there, all right. And I suppose that just shows to a pressing ability that the players have. And this player can press. You can see there that with regards to ball recoveries, he comes in at 2.41, in and around the same as Danny Ings' pressing rate that Danny Ings had for Aston Villa last season. Big one that jumps off the page there are the goals per shot ratio, and also the goal creating actions. Scoring frequency there, as I've shown, is every 107 minutes. That was in the every 107 minutes. That was in the Brazilian leagues last year, the Brasileira or the Serie A, or whatever you want to call it. Scored, as I say, he's a very rounded striker, left foot, right foot, scores with his head. And as we see where he stacks up there, doesn't miss a whole pile of chances, missed 11 big chances last season in Brazilian leagues. Danny Ings coming in there, I suppose, being the barometer there, they're only missing 6 chances. But look, when we see this guy's map, it's very, very important to kind of look and see that he is very much an attacking player. Doesn't contribute much like Brian Broby yesterday. Doesn't contribute as much as probably other strikers would contribute when they're out of possession or even when they're in possession. He only has 27.18 touches per game. He's there to score goals. He really is there to score goals. Rarely dribbles the ball. Doesn't get dispossessed that much. That 50% is a bit of a misnomer there because any tiny incremental movement there of maybe even 0.5 0.05 of a mark there could move you up 10% there, so it looks a small bit worse than it actually is. But this guy is a potent player. As I say, he was in the Brazilian squad this season. There are obviously some concerns about it, that he has been to Europe before, didn't really cut it, if you want to be harsh. But then again, ACL, being in a foreign country, being in a team that didn't suit his needs. You know, at the time, Fiorentina, I don't know whether it was the case at the time, should I say, but Aston Villa have built a really tight knit South American contingent at the team. We just have to remember that brilliant vignette last year of Diego Carlos coming in through the window to see was it Alex Moreno playing on Twitch, and all the rest of the South American guys were around, and they seem to form a really good bond. So Aston Villa have kind of captured lightning in a bottle there with the South American players, and potentially it would be an easier fit for a 36-year-old Pedro to come along than it was for a 21-year-old Pedro to go to Italy and to fit into the Fiorentina team as well. So let's take a little look at some of your comments before I wrap this one up. Where are we? So a couple of ones there talking about Zaha. So Be Happy mentions go get Zaha on a free. I have said that if Zaha signs for Aston Villa, I just don't see him signing for Aston Villa. I would say that they would be interested. Yeah, I think that they would definitely be interested in him. I just don't see him signing for Aston Villa. Like every time he plays against Aston Villa, he seems to show disdain towards Tyrone Mings anyway, for sure. Himself and Tyrone Mings don't seem to get on. And I know that's happened with players before, and they've always turned it around. Wearing the same shirt can be a big equalizer. But yeah, I think I'd be blown away if Zaha joined Aston Villa. There's a lot of and Andrew Munro says he's all for it based on the fact that he bought him on Football Manager and he scored a good few for Villa. That's as good a scouting reference as anything else, I suppose, really. Because scouting is never 100%. And I certainly have, like, I've watched a good amount of tape on him. But nowhere near the amount that I suppose I would need to make a 100% guarantee on him or anything like that. And that's why I've kind of stayed towards the looking at the statistical analysis here, based and also bits and pieces of what I've said or what I've seen of him. You notice that I haven't gone in and this and said, yeah, I'd love if Aston Villa would sign this guy. I was a bit more kind of I'm not going to say bullish about Brian Broby last night. I was a bit more certain, I think, of what I saw of Brian Broby last night. But as I say, sometimes it can be difficult to get footage of Brazilian leagues, and sometimes when you do, it could be the regional competitions where teams are skewed, and maybe it's not the best teams that are out as well. So you always have to be wary of what you see when you're looking at South American content. And thank God for Wisecout, I just haven't had a chance to look at everything that they have there as well. Where are we? Yeah, and I might be wrong. Says we're lucky to have quite a happy dressing room. I think Martinez has a lot to do with it from a South American perspective. He seems to be an organizer and a bond maker. I absolutely think so too. And as I said, I referenced that that video that we saw last year as well. A hilarious video if you didn't see it. Well, it's a lot of Zaha talk there that I might just go past if you don't mind. I'll let you guys talk about Zaha. It's not a Zaha video. I might have to do a Zaha video now based on all the chat there as well. Paul Welford says, I think some more Brazilian players will come in, maybe two. Maybe so. I don't know, but it is Brazil is back, and what I mean by that is the talent that's coming out, the young talent in Brazil at the moment is absolutely frighteningly good. Maybe not from a statistical point of view, but what you can see, like I've spent a good bit of time watching a striker called Marcus Leonardo. I haven't done a scouting series on him that I can remember anyway, because his statistics. I know the second I throw up his statistics, everybody will say, "No, we don't need him. No better than Archer or whatever." Marcus Leonardo is a really, really good footballer. Really, really good footballer. And he's just symptomatic, I think, of what's going on in Brazil at the moment. You see, as a Vitor Roque, and you see a lot more other good strikers that are out there. The names are all very similar, and I get confused by them. But there's a lot of good strikers, a lot of good defensive midfielders coming out of Argentina at the moment, and Uruguay is where you want to go to get defenders. If any of you've seen any of the underage World Cups over the course of this off season, Uruguay had a back four that were just imperious. They were brilliant. And Argentina seemed to be the place to go if you want to find a defensive midfielder that can ping the ball all around the place. So South America is really kind of ramping up their player development at the moment. Not that they ever went anywhere, but Brazil in particular have a couple of young strikers that, if they reach their potential, they're as good as what we've seen in the last 20 years, 20, 30 years to come out of Brazil, in my book anyway. And based once again on the limited pieces that I've seen of them as well. Where else have we there? Yeah, John Steele says the Martinez to United rumors aren't going away. I don't think it'll happen, but it's always worrying. Yeah, I kind of take all those with a pinch of salt. Like, I've always been clear and said that, listen, if somebody comes in with a massive offer, I think we have to look at a massive offer for any of our players. Any player that we have, I think we have to look at a massive offer. That's not being defeatist. I think it's being smart. Like, let's just say they come in with 100 million for a goalkeeper. I don't want to see Emi Martinez go. I don't think he does go, but I think the club consider offers like that. But I just don't see Emi Martinez not being here come the start of the season, or not playing the 2023-24 season at Aston Villa myself. I think Man United will ultimately come to an agreement with David De Gea and just sign him back. I think a lot of it is posturing to kind of get him to sign a lower wage. That's just my view on it. But once again, could be wrong. Could be wrong for sure. And as Gazok says that United want Onana as well, I think they do too. And I think a lot of this is throwing this out to say, like, in case Onana is on the fence, maybe it just pushes him towards signing. But then again, he has a good relationship with Ten Hag from his time at Ajax before, and I would imagine Inter will sell because, once again, every single Italian team will sell players if the right offer comes in. But then again, goalkeepers are kind of more difficult to replace. So who knows? I personally wouldn't sell Emi Martinez this summer, but I would certainly consider offers that come in there and then refuse them, if that makes sense. Stephen Doyle is asking, when's the Sevilla scouting podcast coming out? Looks like there's a few options with their financial troubles. There isn't really, and I'm going to be honest, because loads of their players are 30 and above. But I did toy with the idea of the Moroccan striker that they have. I have a piece done on him, and I toyed with doing that this evening. But I want to watch more of him because a lot of it is recency bias of seeing him in the World Cup, and seeing him more recently for Sevilla. So I wanted to watch a small bit more of him before I did a scouting series on him. Just to talk about it more, because it's very easy to, like, when you're looking at an awful lot of these penalty box players, or these taller players, it's very easy to get stuck in the stereotypical conversation of what a tall striker is, and especially when you're watching a lot of them together. But yeah, I think I will do something on him. I'm not 100% sure that we sign anybody from Sevilla, specifically, like, a lot of their players are old. If you go and look at their players' ages, they just seem to fit outside the age bracket of what we're looking at. A lot of them are 29 and getting on that way. And I think, while that's not a failing of the club, they've obviously gotten success. The and they will recoup the money that they need to recoup. They will recoup that some way. Like, they just need that. Yes, they might need to sell Bono. They might need to sell the striker, the Moroccan striker. That probably gets them everything that they need. But it will be a long rebuilding process, I think, for Sevilla, if they do sell those two players. But they're a club that have done it before, and I have no doubt that they will be able to do it again as well. Right. That's it. I'm going to leave you at that, everybody. Have a great Saturday night. It's 10:30 here in Ireland, and come back tomorrow. We might do something different. Actually, I won't be back tomorrow. I'm going to take a day off tomorrow. But we'll be back again Monday. We might do something small bit different. And obviously, if anything breaks in the meantime, we will go back and chat again. I put out a little bit of a small video in case you guys didn't see it, and I put it out on Twitter. If you could consider following us on our other social media platforms as well, just with the recent throttling and the recent limitations on Twitter. We're not going anywhere from Twitter, and hopefully when Twitter gets back up and running and those limitations aren't in there, hopefully Elon sticks these words and takes them away when he feels is necessary. But at the moment you're limited to a certain amount of post views per day on Twitter, and we don't want people to miss anything. So if you follow us in any of the rest of our platforms, but the easiest way not to miss anything for us is to like us on YouTube, click the bell to be notified, and subscribe to us on YouTube, as I say, and you won't miss anything from us as well. Right, gonna leave it at that. Have a fantastic rest of your Saturday evening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the villa.